Hello YouTube. Bane666 here. So after leaving a comment on one of Won't Let Me Have a Normal Channel Name's videos, he challenged me to a debate. And the topic is, do we need men's rights activists? Here's how it's going to work.
Hey guys, it's me Victor again. So I challenged Bane666 to a debate, and the topic is, do we need men's rights activists? My stance is no, but before I make my points, I'd like to explain the format of the debate. So I'm going to make a video, and then Bane66 will take that video and edit it in with his counterpoints, or just make a video where he addresses my points with counterpoints and additional points, and then I will be able to address all of those points. And basically, it'll make sure that, nothing that one person says is unheard or unanswered by the other person. And I think it's an interesting idea, so we're going to give it a shot.
And I think this is a fair system. I enjoy watching live debates, but there are many reasons why they are faulty. People run out of time, or get spoken over, or statistics are thrown around without any ability to check them out, analyze them and counter them. So Victor seems like a nice enough guy, despite his initial video. So let's hope it's a civil, informative, open-minded discussion. Let's see what he has to say.
So, do we need men's rights activists? No. Basically, it's kind of like we need gay rights activists because gay people don't have as much, they don't have as many rights as a normal human being, like in many parts of even North America, with marriage, right? So, and we have the same thing with women. And so that's why we kind of need those activists.
So my first challenge to Victor here is to name one right in the Western world that men have, that women don't. It's a simple question. Of course, women in the West have rights that men don't. For example, the right to bodily integrity. Female circumcision is banned in the West, but male circumcision is not. Females have the right to abandon parenthood. Under the Baby Moses laws, mothers can anonymously give up their children, without the permission, or even the knowledge of the father. Fathers do not have the right to give up parenthood, even when they have become a father through statutory rape. And I'm guessing Victor is from America, where his right to vote is tied to the draft, unlike the female population of his country which are not required to sign up for the draft. Next.
But then people would, if you were to say, okay, well, men's rights activists focus on men. And it's well, feminism focuses on everyone.
Okay. So, if feminism focuses on everyone, including men, then we don't need a men's rights movement? I think I have summed up your point correctly here, Victor. Please correct me if I'm wrong. So by extension, if feminism focuses on everyone, including gays, lesbians, bisexuals, and trans, then we don't need an LGBT rights movement. Or, if feminism focuses on everyone, including African Americans, then we don't need the African American civil rights movement. This of course is nonsense. There is no reason that these, or any other civil rights movement, should only operate under the banner of feminism. Not to mention that when you take on the title of feminist, you also take on all the ideological baggage that comes with it. But more on that later. Both men and women have issues. Some of these are very serious, and some are trivial first world issues. And there is no reason why there can't be groups that focus on the needs of men, or the needs of women, or both. Being a men's rights activist doesn't mean that you are against women, or women's rights, or equality. It simply means that there are serious issues affecting men, which for the most part aren't acknowledged, or spoken about. And that's why we are here. Now it's true, that most of us tend to be anti-feminist. Once again, this does not mean anti-women, anti-women's rights, or anti-equality. And no, women's rights, or equality, are not synonymous with the word feminism. Just as Republican is not synonymous with democracy, or belief in God is synonymous with Christianity. You can believe in equality, without believing in feminist ideology. Next.
And what a lot of people don't really understand, for people who are anti-feminists, is they go, oh well, like, then why is it called feminism? And it's kind of like one, like, I don't want to go into the history of it, but like basically its roots, right? But it's not just about men and women. That's the thing. It's about all like sexuality and just gender identity, period. So it's like, it's all embodied, like, and it's all stemmed from that movement, combined with like the gay rights movement. So when you think about it, like, it's like the idea of men's rights activists, well, they're kind of the ones excluding themselves.
Okay, there are a couple of false assumptions here. The first one is that all human rights movements are under the umbrella of feminism. The second is that being under the umbrella of the feminist movement gives a human rights movement legitimacy. And thirdly, feminism is the only, or the best, method of achieving human rights goals. I would challenge all these assumptions. Feminist intersectionality is a relatively new thing, by the way. To my knowledge, Gandhi wasn't a feminist. Was the movement he headed, therefore illegitimate, or less legitimate, because it was not under the umbrella of the feminist movement? But let me ask you a very serious question, Victor. If feminism really is interested in the human rights of everyone, including males, then why have I never heard a single feminist speak out against the sentencing gap? You have heard of the sentencing gap, right? You should have, because it's an important human rights issue. Men receive sentences that are 63% higher, on average, than their female counterparts, for exactly the same crimes. Where are the feminists against this violation of human rights? I haven't heard a single one speak out against it. But I have heard of feminists trying to close female prisons. In other words, they are trying to widen the gap. How exactly is this equality? And of course, for every feminist that argues, we don't need the men's rights movement, because feminism is taking care of men's issues, we have at least two feminists telling us that men don't have issues, or men's issues aren't as important, or men's issues are caused exclusively by men, and therefore don't matter, or men should shut up and stay out of feminism, because feminism isn't for males. Case in point. Catering to men's rights is not the point of feminism. To quote from the article, feminism is not about fighting for men's rights and focusing on men's issues. Yes, we do need equality for all and to end gender stereotypes, but the feminist movement at its core is centered on women's rights and liberating women from the restrictions of society and male dominance. When we tell straight, white, cisgender men that they should join the feminist movement because it benefits them and achieves their goals, it discredits what it means to be a male feminist ally. We all need to take a stand against all injustice, even forms of injustice that create power dynamics that benefit us. Feminists should not be convincing men's rights activists how feminism can solve all the qualms they have about men and society. Rather, our focus should be on the fact that women, and particularly women who occupy multiple oppressed identity groups at once, such as women of color and transgender women, face greater threats and that men are not the oppressed group in this discussion. What needs to happen is a change in a worldview, from one that seeks to suppress feminist organizing to one that understands that we must end injustice for the sake of ending injustice, not for the sake of personal gain. And men can participate and men can rally for change, but they have to understand this movement isn't for them. Men's liberation is a quiet bonus, not the motivator for change. Millennial men feel trapped by masculinity and are affected by gender policing too, but these issues pale in comparison to the challenges women face. Saying men too is subtly dismissing the fact that women suffer more deeply under patriarchy than men do. Somehow mainstream feminism has started embracing male dominance and consequently in this moment feminism is being taken seriously by the world. We need to resist this dynamic and refuse to let men's rights activists shift the feminist discussion from women to men. Well, Victor, I hate to say it, mate, but according to this feminist, by saying feminism looks after men's issues too, you are in fact trying to hijack feminism for patriarchal male domination. Yes, I know it's crazy, but trust me, she ain't alone. This is who you have chosen to ally yourself with. Good luck, mate, you are going to need it. Next.
in some ways. It's kind of like we're not like feminists, like we're not exclusive. It's like you're free to take on our beliefs. You know what I mean? And it's like I'll admittedly a new feminist. Like it was kind of like I didn't really know I was, but one of my friends one day asked me, "Do you believe in equal rights for all genders?" And I was like, "Yeah." And basically he said, "Well, you are then a feminist."
By this oversimplistic definition of feminism, I am a feminist, as is the vast majority of men's rights activists. Not to mention the vast majority of people in the Western world. But this is an oversimplistic definition, which is kind of like saying, if you believe in God, you must be a Muslim. Although it's true that Muslims do believe in God, they are not the only faith that does so. In fact, many people believe in God without belonging to a faith at all. For the record, I'm an atheist, and I'm only using this as an analogy. But just as you don't have to be a Muslim to believe in God, you also don't have to be a feminist to believe in equality. You can be a humanist, an egalitarian, a men's rights activist, or even believe in equality without identifying with a particular group. Many feminists believe in equality, but not everyone who believes in equality is a feminist. And I would argue that there are many feminists out there who claim to be in favor of equality. They may even believe they are in favor of equality, but their actions and words speak volumes that they aren't. And I'm not talking about a few radical feminists on Tumblr, posting back and forth how they would like to kill men, but mainstream, prominent feminists with a voice and influence. Now you seem like a nice enough guy, Victor, and I'm guessing you would be of the opinion that all rape victims should be treated equally. It would be unfair, for example, to take the case of a white victim more seriously than that of a black victim. I would hope that you would also agree that both male and female victims of rape should be taken equally seriously. I know I do. Unfortunately, not everyone would agree. From, why are we supposed to believe Shia LaBeouf? But to say that believing male victims is a feminist imperative isn't actually true. As some feminist writers have pointed out, this kind of analysis fails to understand or acknowledge what feminism actually does. Feminism explicitly and necessarily is about understanding the fact that, and the way in which, men, as a class, oppress women, as a class. There is no equivalency in rape because men and women do not share similar experiences of gender oppression. Because men do not, in fact, experience oppression because of their gender, women do. This is a good example of patriarchy theory, where people's pain, suffering, and victimhood is automatically based on their class, and not on the actual circumstances of the case. This type of thinking always reduces females to the victimhood class, and males to the perpetrator class. Even if a male is the victim of a female, it is somehow his fault. This ideology grew out of Marxism in the 70s, and is at the heart of mainstream feminism today. For example, let's look at some of the writing of Andrea Dworkin. Hardly a nobody within the feminist movement, but someone who has shaped the movement of today. 55 years ago, we women became citizens of this nation. After 70 years of fierce struggle for suffrage, our kindly Lord saw fit to give us the vote. Since that time, we have been, at least in a ceremonial way, participants in the bloodletting of our government. We have been implicated formally and officially in its crimes. The hope of our foremothers was this, that when women had the vote, we would use it to stop the crimes of men against men and of men against women. Our foremothers believed that they had given us the tool which would enable us to transform a corrupt nation into a nation of righteousness. It is a bitter thing to say that they were deluded. It is a bitter thing to say that the vote became the tombstone over their obscure graves. We women do not have many victories to celebrate. Everywhere, our people are in chains, designated as biologically inferior to men. Our very bodies controlled by men and male law. The victims of violent, savage crimes. Bound by law, custom, and habit to sexual and domestic servitude. Exploited mercilessly in any paid labor. Robbed of identity and ambition as a condition of birth. We want to claim the vote as a victory. We want to celebrate. We want to rejoice. But the fact is that the vote was only a cosmetic change in our condition. suffrage has been for us the illusion of participation without the reality of self-determination. We are still a colonialized people, subject to the will of men. And, in fact, behind the vote there is the story of a movement that betrayed itself by abandoning its own visionary insights and compromising its deepest principles. August 26, 1920, signifies, most bitterly, the death of the first feminist movement in America. Need I point out that this is not an accurate representation of reality? I should also point out, like I have done in the past, that there are some feminists I do support. I have the greatest respect for Christina Hoff Sommers, Camille Paglia, and Karen DeCrow, for example. And if mainstream feminism represented their form of feminism, instead of the patriarchy theory feminists, like Dworkin and Steinman, I'd probably call myself a feminist. But instead we have distorted cultural Marxism, mixed with misandry. And that's the last thing I'm interested in.
And I just kind of thought about it, and it's like, well, feminists do fight for all rights, so therefore I am. And I really think it's that simple.
Unfortunately, it's not that simple.
And I don't see why, we need that divide.
Okay, to sum up, let me restate a couple of questions for you, which I asked during this video. 1. Name one right that men have, that women don't, in the Western world. 2. Is there any reason why a human rights movement must be under the banner of feminism? 3. Can you name a single feminist who has spoken out against the sentencing gap? 4. What are your opinions on patriarchy theory? Thanks for keeping it civil, mate. I look forward to seeing your response. But take your time, as I'm in the middle of a number of projects, and this looks like it's going to be a busy week. And remember folks, don't drink the poison Kool-Aid.
Camille Paglia, by title Professor of Humanities at Philadelphia's University of the Arts. By growing reputation, the scourge of American feminism. By self-assessment, America's leading female intellectual. If there's truth in that, it began to emerge in 1990 with the publication of Sexual Personae, an historical analysis of literature and art, which, among other things, hailed the male capacity for creativity, praised much of the classic Western European and American literary canon currently out of favor with many academics, and most provocatively, accepted, in fact trumpeted, the premise that sexual stereotypes spring from basic truths. She considers herself a passionate feminist, a champion of opportunity, individuality, and choice, but contends that modern feminism has fast descended into dogma, intolerance, and male bashing. Tonight, Camille Paglia.
And thanks for staying up later. Here is the so-called scourge of modern feminism, Camille Paglia. Recently you told Charlie Rose that your aim is nothing less than the complete destruction of the Gloria Steinem wing of modern feminism. You want to explain?
Well, I think that that current feminism began laudably 20 years ago, but quickly got off track into man-bashing and a kind of weepy, whiny, white middle-class ideology, and I'm simply trying to bring back the great feminism of the 20s and 30s of Katharine Hepburn and Amelia Earhart, a feminism that stresses independence, self-reliance, personal responsibility, and not blaming other people for your problems. And I feel directly inspired by the 200-year record of feminism. I think that there is no backlash right now to feminism, but rather to Gloria Steinem's brand of Betty Crocker feminism.
What is Gloria Steinem and Betty Friedan and the rest, what have they done that's worthwhile? What do you owe them a debt for?
Well, first of all, my feminism precedes either of them, okay? I am on the record back in the 1950s as having made these eccentric transsexual gestures at the age of 5, 6, and 7, all right? So I owe them nothing, okay? I owe them nothing. But Betty Friedan I admire very much. I'm sorry that she has made some rude remarks about me because the current feminism establishment has shunned her. She is shunned, okay? And there are many overlaps between Betty Friedan's views and mine. She is the mother of the modern movement. She founded Now, and the drift of Now away from Betty Friedan is, to me, the whole source of the problem. Gloria Steinem is a cliquish, power mad, all right, snobbish elitist who has gotten the New York media in a stranglehold, all right, and essentially Gloria Steinem does not speak for all of feminism and now does not speak for all of women, all right, and that has to stop, all right. For Gloria Steinem to go on comparing me to a Nazi, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it's just unbelievable. The suppression of independent voices like mine for the last 20 years, all right, is appalling. Current feminism is in a Stalinist phase, a Kremlin phase. Susan Faludi, Naomi Wolf are merely clones of the Kremlin.